Stellar stuff, as always, TJ. Thank you very much. I'm joined here at the desk by Raven and Savitz. And before we get into the game of Hotform versus somebody, that somebody, by the way, is bloodyface, we're just going to take a little more in-depth look at the players remaining and the players eliminated from the tournament. Remember, the scope of this tournament is huge. Over 100 players playing in 22 different locations across North and South America. So just looking at these lists, guys, anything jumping out at you here? Any names left in that you're looking at?
We see Maz still fighting strong, is still in there, and obviously Demigod as well, you know, another quite well-known, you know, America's player as well. So that's looking pretty good for that one, I think.
Yeah, I believe Amas was actually knocked out, and Dog as well.
Oh, okay.
He just got knocked out, so there's a little bit of like an update thing here. But Zale is still in, and so is Just Saiyan.
Yeah, still Saiyan, Amnesiac, Al Sky High, plenty of names still sticking out here, and Nostum obviously still in there as well. But as you can see, the field is starting to get narrowed down very quickly.
Definitely, and Hotform, as we know, in the upper bracket, has been doing very well.
Yeah, Canada powering through here. Fibonacci, Hotform, Impact, Silent Storm, plenty of known players. Knee-ability still carrying the flag for Canada. So plenty of strong players still left in there. And finally, the Latin America region, still a lot of names. Snail, everyone's favorite tavern hero, is still plugging away. So
yeah, not doing too bad at all. And also, Best Murloc NA, one of my favorite player names at least, is still in the tournament by looks things. So that's looking pretty good for him.
So yeah, there you go. Make sure you follow along with the brackets. You can check the Battlefy links for yourselves. We'll do our best to keep you updated as well using the fabulous technology of the sideboard. But moving on, we have a game coming up right now that's far more important. Hotform versus bloodyface. Guys, what do we know about these two players?
Well, Hotform, that's an easy one. Not everybody might know him, but if you watched the World Championship last year, he was actually the second place finisher at that event, and that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously the biggest stage of them all. If you're able to get that far, you've fought through a bunch of different stages, much like the format we have this year. Slightly different back then, but still, it's a hell of a road to get there to be essentially second in the world.
Yeah, also he takes like strange adaptations of decks, I think, as well. I think one of the key ones was the Nexus champion Sarad we saw in his warrior list at the World Championships, which was pretty interesting to see. Not the most common pick I've ever seen.
Yeah, bloodyface himself, I think, went fairly deep in the Americas qualifier last year as well. He's an accomplished ladder player, has held rank 1 legend on several occasions, so he's no slouch himself. Don't want to sell him short in this matchup. But Hotform, probably the star name of the two in this one, at least. Probably the expected favorite on paper, at least. As we can see, anything can happen in Hearthstone. And generally, these just because a name is lesser known does not make them the underdog purely based on ability in any given matchup.
Yeah, of course. I think it's just, you know, we see a lot of players that, because the tournaments are, you know, all streamed and everything, if you get far in one, normally, you know, you're just a more well-known face compared to others. But I'm sure, you know, you guys will agree, there's a lot of players who we know a very high skill level that just haven't had a breakout performance yet.
Yeah, this might be bloodyface's moment here. If he manages to take Hotform down right now, I believe it's like 2 wins or something to make it to the top 8.
Yeah, everyone's getting very close, of course. The stakes could not be higher. A place at the Americas Championship on the line, which, you know, we saw multiple people progressing through last year, getting to that big stage, getting their breakout performance. We've already seen Crane do it for Europe, along with some other names, get that big breakout that we all knew they deserved. But we can see the lineups right here. Raven, anything jumping out at you with the lineups or the bans?
Yeah, so one of the interesting ones is from Hotform. He's actually bringing the Zoth Paladin, which compared to the previous weekend we had, where it was one of the most dominant in terms of popularity decks taken, we've not really seen much of it at all, at least on stream and in general deck choice. So that's going to be really interesting to see his build of that, and you know, how that actually performs. And also both players have Renolock, I believe, so that's definitely going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a very interesting trend that Zoth Paladin, after having so much success, fell off the radar a little bit, and a lot of players have chosen different lineups and different classes for this event. But Hotform clearly doing well with it.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Zoth Paladin was it was one of the first decks everyone actually went to as soon as Standard came out.
Yep.
So then everyone presumed everyone was going to bring it, so then they built lineups and were completely prepared to play against it and take it down. So although it was definitely a popular deck, we saw it fall quite often last weekend, I think purely down to preparation more than anything.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of sticks out from here is that both players are playing Warrior, but their Warrior decks are completely different. Hotform is playing a cartoon warrior, while bloodyface is bringing the so-called tempo warrior or mid-range warrior, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, there are about 6.9 billion people in the world that call it Tempo Warrior, and then there's Brian Kibler. So I think we'll stick with
and
Tempo.
he's not on the
for
desk,
now.
so
Right,
we're
exactly. What do we think about the bans here? The Warrior and the Shaman going respectively.
The Rogue and the Shaman.
Sorry, the Rogue and the Shaman. I just saw weapons and went Warrior.
Warrior.
I've got weapons on the brain. What's the thinking behind the bans, do we think?
Yeah, I mean, the Shaman ban's always pretty straightforward, in my opinion. I mean, he's got Rogue as a starter, so that's always one that's going to be very weak if you presumed it's not going to be banned out. And it's just an overall powerful deck, so I think just some people just don't want to play against it a lot of the time.
Like Paladin, for example, which Hotform has in his lineup, is one of the decks that struggles against the Rogue. And that might also be the reason why so many people chose to not bring Paladin if they expected a lot of Rogue, which ended up being the case. Rogue is one of the most popular classes.
Yeah, I think the trend that we've seen from Europe moving to the Americas is that people have targeted Rogue more, expecting it to be the most popular deck. We've seen these kind of punishing aggro decks. We've seen a non-zero amount of Arcanite Reaper, which is a card that kind of destroys Rogue single-handedly a lot of the time. So a good response to that in general, if you're going to follow that strategy, is also not to bring the N'Zoth Paladin, because then your whole strategy falls apart. So I don't think it's any indication of that deck not being powerful. I think it definitely still is, but I think the reason players have moved away from it is because there's been more of a targeting of Rogue strategy in this tournament.
Speaking of Arcanite Reaper, bloodyface is actually running one in his Tempo Warrior, which is pretty cool. I think it's a really nice addition, because a lot of the time, if you're all in on the Malkarok weapon, and then we've all probably been on the receiving end of a Curse Blade or two. So Arcanite Reaper kind of just fills that gap as he isn't running Malkarok.
It is very powerful. I mean, you can deal 10 damage for 5 mana, so how do you not run it? Especially now.
All to face, right?
Like, I think that a big deal why we didn't see it in the past was that Death Spite was so dominating, and so it was kind of like overshadowing Arcanite Reaper. But I think it's a fine card. It's a good card to have.
It absolutely is. It's extremely flexible, more flexible than people give it credit for, really. You can either use it as that 5-mana Pyroblast to face over 2 turns, or you can just use it to take out 2 chunky minions in the mid-game and get a lot of board control. So it's definitely one of the optimal weapons to get from Malkarok anyway. So sure, why not just take the Malkarok out and slap that bad boy in?
I like Malkarok. He's one of my favorite cards out of the expansion, so sometimes Curse Blade, sometimes it's Doomhammer, so it's like, fair enough.
I imagine your Malkarok needle tilts more towards the Gorehowl side and less to the Curse Blade side. So.
I did play a game yesterday where I played Malkarok. I was losing, played Malkarok, got Gorehowl, and I was like, okay, suppose I win. It's fine.
For me, it was like I crafted Malkarok, played Malkarok, got Curse Blade, disenchanted Malkarok. That was the cycle.
Disenchanted Hearthstone.
Which is crazy coming from a guy who plays a lot of Yogg.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of weapons, we do have Warrior up against the Renolock in the first game, and I will leave this in the capable hands of the most handsome casting duo you will ever see in your life. Raven and Savitz, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Sol. So this is going to be the Renolock versus Cthulhu Warrior. Not a matchup we've seen too often, but definitely an interesting one.
Oh yes, it is. Both players are bringing Renolocks, but their lists are a tiny bit different. There's some different card choices in those. And for example, bloodyface is playing that Mountain Giant, which Hotform doesn't have in his. And in this matchup, it's definitely great to have access to that 8/8.
Yeah, and this is going to be the Cthulhu Warrior, similar to what we saw AK Wonder perform very well with his triple Cthulhu decks, and I think especially since his performance last weekend, I've been seeing a little bit more of that deck on ladder.
Yeah, Hotform isn't the only one bringing the Cthulhu Warrior to this tournament. Warrior as a class is very versatile, and you can bring a lot of different types of warriors. Like we have seen the Pirate Warrior, we've seen Tempo Warrior, even Control Warrior. I believe there's a few.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
But Cthulhu Warrior, I'm still trying to decide how I feel about the deck. It hasn't worked out extremely well for me when I personally have played it, but yeah, I also watched.
So are you trying to tell me you've never played Bran and Ancient Shieldbearer and then just won the game through a 20 live game?
I have done it, yes. I have done it, yes. But there's some consistency issues at times, like playing those, and some of the worshippers of Cthulhu, so to say, might feel a little bit weak at times if it doesn't fit the situation perfectly. Some stat lines might be a little bit lower than on other cards of the same mana cost, just to get that buff for the Cthulhu card. Doomsayer coming out from Hotform here, but bloodyface has the perfect answer in form of Spellbreaker.
Yeah, it's going to be nice. Can he deal with the second one if there's actually any removal coming out, though? But as he said, he does Spellbreaker. Kind of strange to have to play a Doomsayer versus a Renolock. It's normally there for the anti-aggro effects, but Hotform does have a second one as well, and now he drops down the 3/6 taunt that actually does, as we can see on the screen now, gain +1/+1 to Cthulhu every time it takes damage.
Yep. And that's certainly a good taunt to have. It's like a Fend Creeper without a drawback. Instead, you get those buffs for your Cthulhu. It works quite well. It's one of the less punishing worshippers to play, in my opinion, and it fits perfectly in a deck like Warrior, where in the early game you're playing defense. And to have the access to this taunt.
Yeah, I think as well, it normally takes at least 2 sources of damage to kill it. So, to me, it almost reads give Cthulhu +2/+2 as a sort of death rattle effect at least. And a lot of the time with this Cthulhu Warrior, you're not trying to build like a gigantic sort of like 20+ damage Cthulhu. You actually just want to hit 10, so then your Shield Bearer can have an effect, and your Twin Emperors can go off as well. So that's going to be the important number, and he is already at 8. He does, as you mentioned earlier, have a Disciple of Cthulhu in hand to guarantee at least a +2 straight away if he really wants.
Yeah, 10 attack on the Cthulhu is kind of like the breaking point. The Twin Emperor, to play without the ability to generate the second one is kind of bad, but once you get all that value from it, getting those two 4/6 taunts is pretty huge on as early as turn 7.
Yeah, another crazy combo you can do with Bran.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough one. He had the option to actually drop Doomsayer there just to, make his opponent play an awkward turn and either, try and clear it off one way or another after already seeing the silence. But he chose to hold on to it to potentially maybe actually set up a turn for the Cthulhu later on.
Yeah, I definitely like keeping the Doomsayer in the back. If bloodyface only had like 6 power on the board, then I would like to see it here. But the Doomsayer, when you're playing Warrior, does have uses later on. For example, after a brawl, when you have just a couple of mana left, you might brawl and your opponent ends up with, let's say, 1/2 attack minion or so. In that case, the Doomsayer might kind of like unlock your Overload from that turn, from the brawl, and you get to play your minions on an empty board the following turn.
Yeah, Hotform definitely has a lot of options, but bloodyface is just deciding what he wants to do about this board state, because one of the things you actually always have in mind against any form of control warrior is the second you overcommit is the turn they most definitely have already drawn Brawl ready for you. So definitely got to manage resources, because I feel like in this matchup, the second the warrior gets sort of a few too many good removal turns and very efficient removal is when you throw the game away, because you can actually just run out of juice a lot of the time.
Yeah, this is an excellent draw from bloodyface. I just have to point it out. Like having all those threats, having the Twilight Drake, Mountain Giant, Emperor Thorison, and Ragnar's Filer also. Like there's so many proactive plays, and that's exactly what you want against the control warrior.
Yeah, the only thing he's missing is the Swampoos, which actually is in the deck, which would have been insane to just drop Swampoos on the Gorehowl. You actually in this matchup, you actually just don't. I think you almost just never Swampoos a Fire War Axe and just wait until the Gorehowl comes out. Always feels good.
The value from Gorehowl is incredible. You can easily get a 4-for-1 with it, maybe even 5-for-1 if it's not dealt with.
Yeah, and bloodyface has actually put a good amount of pressure on. Even though Hotform's played the Shield Bearer and gained the 10 armor, he is only on 26. A lot of the time, by the time the Shield Bearer comes down, the warrior's on like 50 or something health, and you start thinking, oh god, this is going to go on a while. But yeah, he has put a good amount of pressure, and again, this is really nice. He kills off the Shield Bearer, and what's really important is not overcommitting to the board. He's putting enough pressure to do damage every turn with the minions. But this is not really the best Brawl board I've ever seen.
No, not a Brawl board at all. Very creative and powerful play coming out from bloodyface. He knows that there's not that many things to big game hunt in Hotform's deck. There is obviously the Cthulhu, but that's going to be coming a little bit later and can be dealt with other cards. Having that abusive such a big game hunter was just a very strong tempo play. Yeah,
exactly, and just put just enough threats on the board to require an answer in one way or another from Hotform. And bloodyface again, this is what I really like about Renolock. It's just the sheer amount of options you have every turn. You almost always play with quite a large hand, and definitely have many, many ways to get out of this, to take the victory. And Twisting Nether looks okay. It's definitely not the most powerful players. It only is effectively removing 2 4/6s, but that it is a legendary minion, so it's not going to like come down again once you've already dealt with it.
Yep, looks like he's going for something a little bit different. Hellfire into Demon Wrath would be my guess. Maybe tapping before doing the Demon Wrath. Back to 9 cards and the beginning of
let's just reiterate that his sequencing then wasn't that bad because you don't tap first on a relatively full hand.
Yep.
And that was I actually really like that use of AoE, because against like a control style warrior, they don't normally build up the board much themselves, so you get that value while you can.
Yeah, it can be extremely difficult to find value with cards like Demon Wrath against the control warrior that plays low amount of minions, but there's a good time for it, and also just getting rid of that card in your hand to make room for life taps and finding better cards is very good.
Yeah, and this Reno list does run Leroy and Faceless as well, so he does have the opportunity later on, which actually I'm pretty sure is why the Emperor's not come down yet.
Oh yeah, he's waiting for
because
the combo pieces.
you need to hit one, right? Like obviously more's nice, but you really just need to hit one of those pieces, where the Power Overwhelming, the Leroy or the Faceless, and then you can do a 20 damage combo with 10 mana, which is definitely pretty nice, especially because he has managed to put enough pressure on Hotform to keep his health relatively low.
Yep, I'm looking at the Shadow Bolt in the Mortal Coil to begin with for this turn. Then see where to go from there. Maybe the Emperor if he picks up that combo piece.
Yeah.
If he doesn't find the combo piece, Senjin Shieldmaster would be an option. Maybe the life tap. There's the Leroy, so he could just drop the Emperor here.
I actually can't recall what attack is the Gore Howl on.
I was just trying to think of the same.
Yeah, because if the Gore Howl's on 5, I would probably drop Senjin, just to make him use it and then drop Emperor.
That's a great card.
Or you can always just tap into the Ooze. Oh, it was on 4.
It was on 4.
So yeah, really cool tap there.
Yeah, really good for him to get the Ooze. A tiny bit late for the party. It would have been even better if he had it before the Gore Howl already killed 3 minions, but still a good card to get.
Again, talking of weapon removal, Harrison Jones does come into Hotform's hand, and Bloodyface is actually running Jiraxxus, so that could be a really interesting setup, because there's always, although it feels very natural to want to Harrison a Jiraxxus, a lot of the time it doesn't get played too often in this matchup, because Cthulhu can, if you play Jiraxxus on a, say, empty board, Cthulhu can normally just kill you in one way or another. But also, the game might go late enough where Hotform might not want to fatigue, like into that many cards.
Yep, and here again, Bloodyface with a full hand, a lot of decisions. I think it might be time for the Emperor, maybe even Senjin to protect it a tiny bit, to make it a little bit
awkward, right?
Yeah, exactly, to make it a little bit more difficult to clear. And as we see, Hotform right now doesn't have a way to remove it besides the Brawl, and the Brawl is still well, it's actually not unreliable, because he could use the Slam weapon afterwards, but he's going to try to find something. Oh, that helps. That is certainly going to help him kill off the Emperor.
Yeah, that actually just guarantees the Emperor to be dead, if that's what Hotform wants to do, but I would struggle to imagine a situation in which he wouldn't want to clear off both these minions here. As, it's not as if Bloodyface is rocking one card in his hand or anything like that. The value he's getting from the Emperor is actually pretty insane if it continues to live.
Yeah, I agree. There's no way you can leave up an Emperor for 2 turns against the Warlock, so that is certainly going to be going down. There's he could save a couple of points of damage here. Oh, he's going to save the life points, so he's going to take the 2 extra damage on his Taunter instead of his hero.
Yeah, well, you've seen 2 of the sort of damage-based AoEs, right?
And Mortal Coil also has already been used.
You've seen Coil, you've seen Hellfire and Demon Wrath. If Shadow Flame comes out, then fine, you can just deal with it. And also Twist in there that doesn't take into account health. So I really like this play, and it just continues to buff up the Cthulhu. Yeah,
and like we can see here, it doesn't really make a difference whether it's at 3 or 1 in this.
Is this Doomsday just going to do the most work ever? After taking all the AoEs, the silence, is the Kodo going to be the one to finish it off at last?
Elven Archer. I think it's not bad. I mean, you can take out the 3-1 now with that, and then maybe develop some other minions on the board, or play some other minions like the Imping Boss and the Farseer, or just one of the 2 if you want to play around Brawl.
Yeah, I'm wondering that there was, at least to have a thought about the Voidwalker, because you've seen so many weapons. You can just say, this might just tank, tank a Grom, for example, because there's just no other way to get around it.
Okay, so depending on how you look at it, that kind of was a punish for, in the end, for having that 1 toughness, but if that was another target for the Elven Archer, then the Elven Archer could have taken out the 2-1, and I don't think the difference is that big.
Yeah, he didn't play around that Peddler opportunity. And now this is what's really risky now, and you know, similar to what we talked about in terms of Jiraxis earlier on, is that like bloodyface probably, now that this Cthulhu I think is getting up to like 14 or something now, I think he's thinking, okay, I maybe want to just top up my health a little bit, as we've still not seen Reno drawn as well. So it's one of those awkward matchups where if you have minions on the board, Cthulhu's less, you know, burst damage to the face most of the time.
Right.
But, you know, only with just a couple of small minions, not too much of a threat, that Cthulhu could actually just kill him in a couple of turns' time.
Yeah, and here Hotform has the option to buff it +4/+4 if he wants to by playing the Brand Bronzebeard before the Cthulhu's chosen to get that battle cry effect twice.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, like, with all his options, I think that seems pretty okay.
Oh,
Unless he's going for the brawl.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, this is getting very interesting. Is he gonna first Doomsayer, then brawl? I think it's better this way. Yeah, brawl first.
And do you think he's gonna just go for Doomsayer and just say, I'm batting a turn, like?
Yeah, this is the moment for Doomsayer, in my opinion. After the brawl, like the best uses for Doomsayer in a control warrior are usually to play it on like turn 2, turn 3, or after a brawl if it gets to later stages.
Yeah, but we can see there's
a
pretty reasonable answer in the form of Stampeding Kodo. Just an insta-kill there, and just a good body on the board as well. Just, you know, putting a 3-5 there, because it's swiftly getting to the point where Hotform's still under health pressure. Like, he hasn't played Trueheart, so he's not been able to stack up tons of armor, so he's really on the defensive. And I was just about to say, he doesn't have many cards that can actually, you know, help him out, but a second brawl, I mean, it's still a tough one, because if you brawl and the Kodo lives, you're just in the same position, you know, more or less as you were the previous turn.
Yeah, the brawl doesn't look all that great, but compared to his other options, I think he might have to do it here. Just hope that the Elven Archer wins. He could drop one of his minions first if he's feeling like he has to take a huge risk here to like gain a bigger advantage.
Yeah.
Grand Bronzebeard into the Cthulhu's chosen hero power. He would go up to 22 HP with looking at 6 on the board. That's pretty risky. Just gonna play the Cthulhu's chosen, and is that lethal? No, not yet. Unless he gets the faceless. Faceless would have done it.
Yeah, it's not lethal yet, but Reno is in hand now, so he can actually just tap to try and get to that faceless quicker, and just play Reno and say, right, okay, Cthulhu will not kill me in the next couple of turns.
I'm kind of feeling the rag here to get that 8 damage from it to the face. Getting some trades here, and then yeah, there's the rag. Trying to set up the lethal. He might not even need the faceless because the 8 is so much.
Yeah. There is potential there. You know, this will just end the game, and Shield Slam, not what Hotform's after. I mean, again, he's just like, it feels so bad to play a Cthulhu deck and just not really draw into Cthulhu this late in a game. It's not like it's in an aggro match, you know, like only lasted a few turns. This game's gone on for a fair amount of time, and just not having the Cthulhu in hand is really rough. He's just going to brand.
I love it.
Brand brawl.
Yeah, the situation is bad enough for Hotform to go for a 1 in 4. Doesn't get it.
It's probably okay with that. Anything but the Ragu is probably reasonably okay with.
Yeah, this is so scary though. There's 10 damage. Oh, and no lethal just yet. So close, but so far.
I'm almost out of cards.
So,
and there's the faceless.
Yeah. And only 1 card left in the deck, but it's probably not going to matter. Is there still a Shield Bearer left in Hotform that could maybe buff his health out of the burst range? I don't think so. Not with Reno's and the Gang Boss on the board.
I don't think there's anything for Hotform to get here that would save him. All right, well.
Map into Monkey.
Oh, but
1 mana off.
Oh, he needed it before the map.
Yeah,
but I believe he was still there because he could have only shield slammed the Reno Jackson. He would have went up to 22.
But he could have armored up, right, as well.
No, because yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been just off if he got it all in the right time and he shield slammed Reno, but that's not how it turned out. And bloodyface is going to take the first game in quite a slow and steady game for both the guys. But I think he just always had the the better end of the stick in a lot of that game. Whereas I think actually Hotform just suffered from a lack of card draw to a certain extent. He was playing like quite a control-heavy deck with only 3 or 4 cards in hand maximum.
Yeah, I also think that bloodyface navigated the game very well, playing like around the brawls a little bit, putting just the right amount of pressure on. The Hotform was unable to like deal with that. Even with the Gore Howl, yeah, the Gore Howl killed a lot of minions, but he he took a lot of damage doing so.
Yeah, especially like the BGH turn where he played Abuse and BGH to deal with a shield bearer. It's actually quite a difficult minion to deal with in terms of having being a 6/6. Like this just put enough pressure on the board, like you said, to just say, well, you can brawl it, but it's 4/2 and I think like a 2/2/1s or something. And it's just like really awkward for his opponent to deal with. So.
Another thing that about that was that I think that for Hotform, he really wanted to draw Justicar through hard because improving the hero power to give you that 4 armor instead of 2, it actually adds up quite quickly. And with those extra life points, maybe he could have stayed out of the Leroy range.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you know your opponent is playing the Leroy combo, you know what health you have to play around. Like towards the late game where you're expecting your opponent to have drawn that. But Bloodyface is 1 ahead, and Hotform has still got his 3 decks left. So he has his N'Zoth Paladin, his own Renolock, and his Cthulhu Warrior. How do you think Hotform's chances have changed now that he's just lost the first game and Bloodyface has won with his Renolock?
I think his chances are still fine, and he could be able to turn this around easily. I think all of the decks from Hotform stand a decent chance, at least against those remaining decks from Bloodyface. So it's not like the matchups remaining are extremely difficult now, and that was the one that he absolutely had to win. This match is still only getting started.
Yeah, I think Bloodyface's Shaman is going to be an interesting one, but just because it's so aggressive that it can actually, especially against Reno, N'Zoth, it can actually just go so fast. You can't actually just draw the answers fast enough.
Yeah.
And that game could end really quickly. So that's definitely one I'd be afraid of if I was Hotform. I don't even know which deck I'd really want to play against that, because even the Warrior might be a little bit slow because it's more sort of minion based and less removal because you have to play those cultist minions.
Yeah. That Warrior from Hotform, it's very defensive and slow. So maybe that's gonna struggle. And the Tempo Warrior from Bloodyface, if it goes up against Hotform's Warrior, if we get the Warrior mirror, which some people might find a little bit not the most exciting thing ever, but it's because these players are playing different decks. It's actually quite interesting for me. The Tempo Warrior can run out of threats. I believe that the control one has more removal than the Bloodyface's Tempo Warrior has big threats. It's quite possible the Hotform kills everything, all the minions from Bloodyface. But the Battle Rage, for example, that's so many cards. Maybe very early on, if you get a Battle Rage 4 cards, we saw it how bad Hotform's Warrior is at drawing cards.
Yeah,
he had,
definitely saw it in the last game.
Yeah.
And also with Tempo, it can go the other way, where if Hotform draws the more cultist-based cards and the minions, Tempo is actually really good at just dealing with minions quickly and just moving on. So again, it's another deck that can actually just steamroll the game. And there's always likes of Varian and Ragnaros as the big late game threats that can just push through early on. It's a deck that I feel like demands brawl a lot of the time. Once you get to turn 5, unless something has been going very, very well for the Cthulhu Warrior, you kind of want to brawl that board because there's cards like Bloodhoof Brave, Frothing Berserker, even the Ravaging Ghoul as well, just on the board, constantly chipping away.
Yeah, Battle Rage is probably the key card for that, because that's how the Tempo Warrior is reliant on getting those cards. And Variant Rune, while it can be extremely powerful, Brawl does kind of solve that issue fairly efficiently. If it pulls 3 minions, unless there's Cairn Bloodhoof, most of that is going to be gone.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough one. Just about Bloodyface has just nipped to the bathroom just for a quick break, which is understandable as that was a relatively long game, and I just definitely want to feel okay about it. And I just want to speak to you about the N'Zoth Paladin as well. After it was a game, it was a deck that everyone played early on, but how do you think it's going to develop now? Do you think it's actually worth playing now, or do you think everyone's just too prepared to be in with the rogues?
I think it might have went down in value a little bit, but it's still definitely a strong pick. And this matchup, for example, I think it's a good one for the Paladin. It's nothing too bad. I would be comfortable playing this if I was Hotform. The ones that are really scary are those maybe Freeze Mage, because Freeze Mage can deal all 30 damage in 1 turn, or the Rogue that can sap your expensive minions that don't have battle cries. But you can quite easily, maybe with cards like True Silver Champion, you can control the board early on, kill the Frothing Berserkers. You have Stampeding Kodos for the Bloodhoof Braves or Acolytes of Pain. It can be huge.
Yeah, I think the thing as well is the reason everyone is kind of like loving Tempo War at the moment is it feels like one of those decks that can just win any game, you know, potentially. It's like all its matchups, I don't think there's any really terrible matchups for Tempo Warrior. They're all just either favored or kind of hard, you know, like, you know, doable but not easy. But we are going to see the typical opening from N'Zoth Paladin a couple of turns where it's just, you know, hero power, just take it slow, maybe drop the Acolyte. But again, he's dropping an Acolyte into his opponents as well, so
yeah,
it's going to be interesting how bloodyface chooses to navigate this, because you know, you want the card draw, but actually, never mind, you can just draw Fire War Axe to kill the Acolyte straight off and then gain the one card draw from the Acolyte from the 1/1 on the board. So that's really nice for bloodyface there.
Yeah, Hotform already with some of the better cards for this matchup. Stampeding Kodo definitely one of the best ones, if not even the best one for this. He's going to save the Kodo maybe for a Bloodhoof Brave. That was another option. Just gonna go for the Harrison here. Wants to get that 5/4 on the board and not gonna wait for a Gorehowl.
Yep. So this is a tough one now, because this is the point where the N'Zoth Paladin is actually like kind of ahead on board with a big minion, and this is where Tempo Warrior kind of struggles a lot of the time if they don't have like a very quick removal, like maybe even like Ghoul Execute to just get rid of it, even though it's probably not a prime execute target. You just want to have the board back. Do see bloodyface is eyeing up the slam just to deal the 2 damage and draw a card maybe into another weapon.
Yeah, he has a really good play here with that slam into Ravaging Ghoul, getting that trade and drawing, well, kind of 3 cards in the process, I guess. Slam replacing itself and the Acolyte drawing 2 extra, so that went well for bloodyface. He got 3 cards off from his Acolyte.
Yeah, really interesting card there that Hotforms now looks like is going to go for is the Twilight Summoner. One of the cards that everyone put into N'Zoth Paladin, it seems like, you know, a go-to Death Rattle minion, especially when it dies and turns into the, I believe it's Faceless Destroyer, a 5/5.
Oh, yeah.
But something that was phased out very quickly, as I believe it just didn't have enough board impact. And then when you play N'Zoth, it comes back as the 1/1, obviously, and then, you know, then it has to die, and then you get the 5/5. So it seems quite extended, where everyone's normally cut down their own N'Zoth list into, say, Sylvanas, Cairn, and Tyrion, for example.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cards that are way better for tournament play than it is for something like the ladder, because it's just like the immediate impact of that card is way too low when you're queuing into Shaman all the time or other aggressive strategies. But for a tournament like this, I actually think the card is pretty good, because there are a lot of slower decks around.
Yeah, and we even see Harvest Golem as well. So,
oh yeah,
you know, Hotform definitely preferring the multiple Death Rattle cards in the deck overall. You know, across the curve, as opposed to just having the the key legendary minions that everyone is running. bloodyface has a lot of options now, a lot of good options actually. He's already seen one Kodo, so he feels the Bloodhoof Brave is safe. And just to make it even safer, this is a really nice play. Playing the Blood Taker, he gains the 2/2 and also removes the potential of the Kodo sniping it.
Yeah, but this Wildfire equality, I think it's pretty good. You end up with a 5/5 and well, he's gonna hold down to it. Okay, like equality is a card that you might wanna save for later on too.
Yeah, and
just
also
thinking that
because
could have been full clear.
Because he has this play, I think one of the emergency boards you want to clear off is Frothing Berserkers, because they can actually just kill you. Like if there's one Frothing Berserker hidden, say behind a Bloodhoof Brave, and then a couple of Whirlwind effects come out, suddenly it just hits you for 15 and it's game over. Whereas Paladin's much better at controlling the health total over like slower damage as opposed to big burst effects, which is what makes Rogue good against Paladin, for example.
Yeah, but one of the things I didn't like as much from this like not clearing play is that it does enable that Battle Rage, which could have potentially drawn even more cards. It's only gonna be 2 here. When you see a Battle Rage for 2, that's like whatever. When it happens,
like okay,
yeah,
right?
it's like okay. But when it happens for 3 or 4 cards, like those are like oh my goodness, like it can be like really game deciding.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where I imagine Hotform's already thinking, okay, Wild Pyro quality, because as far as I'm aware, he doesn't really have a good way to deal with the Frothing Berserker, as the Keeper of Uldaman can bring its attack back down, but it continues to get buffed again if there's damage taken. And that we can see that there's a Whirlwind in hand as well, which is never good for the opponent.
That's just, I think the equality is like way worse right now than it was before. Stampeding Kodo, however, to take out that taunt.
Oh yeah, because the 2/1 died, right?
Yeah.
So now he can just trade the 5/5 into the Berserker.
Yeah. That doesn't feel too good. No, no humility available for Hotform.
Yeah, I think that's okay though. I mean, it's done it. You know, the 5/5's kind of done its job. All you're doing really in this matchup is just not dying and slowing your opponent down, because the Tempo Warrior will just run out of juice at some point. We can see there's a lot of cards in hand, but if you can just hold off on using key cards like Equality, it means dealing with cards like Varian and Rag and Grom become a lot easier.
Right. And yeah, like if the Paladin player manages to survive long enough to drop the Nzot, that quite often ends the game right there. At least if a Tyrion has been played before.
Yeah, there's normally no way out once Tyrion and say a couple of other friends like Sylvanas are down on the board as well. Bloodyface again is just going to refill the board to a certain extent here, clear off that Kodo, and once more present a Frothing Berserker as a threat. And this is what you need to do. You need to say like, right, okay, you've killed one. What are the odds on you having, a efficient clear for the second one? And if you don't, like, I can put so much damage on that it forces you into, inefficient turns.
Yep. A few decisions here. Like this doesn't really feel like the equality. The Frothing is pretty scary, but Keeper fooled them on the 1-1 they got the Acolyte. Yeah, I can get behind this play. I think that's the best he could have done. Going for the Solemn Vigil, perfect for mana right now.
Yeah, I think Hotforms must be feeling pretty brave here, because he's leaving a Frothing on 7.
It's scary.
He is on 27, so he's on almost full life. But there can be a quite a good amount of bursts come down. We can see an Arcanite Reaper and a Kor'kron Elite in hand, and there's a Whirlwind, a Bloodtaker as well to do sort of extra damage to then buff the Frothing. So although we can't do all of that this turn, he can start buff the Frothing and again potentially clear some of the minions to just say to Hotform, like, okay, well, you didn't clear it last turn, can you do it this time?
I think we're gonna see a big battle rage here, going for maybe playing some minions first, playing the Whirlwind and going for a battle rage afterwards. Kor'kron Elite. Interested to see if he goes for Blood Ichor, maybe on the 3-2 before doing the Whirlwind. Seems fitting, because then after that it's going to get finished off by the Whirlwind. And
and all this, this is so good. This is one of the cool interactions where the hit from Bloodtaker buffs the Frothing, and then the Whirlwind on the 2-2 you've summoned, again buffs the Frothing. This is so much damage, and I'm not gonna lie, Savitz, I never leave a Frothing up if I can help it, because this has happened to me fairly often, and I have nightmares about this situation.
Yeah, that is so much damage.
And he keeps the minions on the board as well. The casual 14 there suddenly drops Hotform down to 9. He does draw Tyrion, but that I feel is nowhere near safe enough.
No, you gotta heal. You gotta heal here. So Wild Pyro Equality into Forbidden Healing actually seems like the only play. I don't think there's any other options in this situation, because he does recognize that his opponent plays cards like Chroma's Hellscream.
Yeah, could he have actually just done that the other way and kept the Pyro alive? If he played Equality Wild Pyro and then heal himself.
Oh yeah.
So he actually could have just left himself with a 3-1 on the board there.
That's true.
Which is, unfortunate, because at this point any minion you can get is super important to help with the trades.
Yeah, I believe that was strictly better to go for the Equality first and then the Wild Pyro into the Forbidden Healing.
Varian comes down. Whoa. There's a 7-7, and also there is a Ragnaros. So although we can see it's going to be cleared up by the Pyro Equality again, which, to be fair, Bloodyface is probably like, we're quite late in the game, you've drawn a lot of cards, yeah, okay, fine. Definitely not happy, but still. Rag did get 8 to face, and he's got Grom.
Yeah,
and Whirlwind, so he does have a Grom activator and an Arcanite Reaper. Can Hotform actually just keep up with this damage? I'm not really sure.
It's certainly going to be tough. I don't think it's lethal just yet. It's going to be one-off. He can go for the Grom, Whirlwind, and follow it up with an Execute on the Doomsayer too.
Yeah, it does mean he doesn't have an Execute for Tyrion, but he has a Grom, so that's going to feel pretty good. And he has Arcanite Reaper and Kor'kron. This is really nice from Bloodyface.
Yeah, so Tyrion looks like the play here, but we know that if he plays that, it's actually going to end the game right there, as the Kor'kron Elite or the Arcanite Reaper can be used to remove the Divine Shield. The Chromas will be able to deal with that Tyrion afterwards, and then either the weapon or the Kor'kron is going to be enough to end the game.
Yep. Yeah, so that's going to be crazy. What a game. I mean, like, again, I just go back to the situation which I personally never want to leave a Frothing Berserker.
no, it doesn't matter. That's PM. He's just having fun. I was like, no, what? This is pretty brutal.
I looked at you for 1 second. You looked very upset. I glanced back at the screen. It's like, no, never mind. And bloodyface actually going, you know, trying to maybe just push Hotform into a bit of a, bit of mind games there, just going, whoops. It's like, nope, never mind, execute.
I was looking at the game was over, and then I was looking at you and like planning out that.
Next minute we're like, oh,
what is going to be for the next game? What's Hotform gonna pick? And then like seeing that emote, I actually thought that he missed it, but there was the execute. How does that make you feel when your opponent does that? I mean, if you Hotform.
I think if you Hotform at this stage, there's a couple of frustrations. One, the ending, of course. You know, your opponent like messing with you basically is I think almost just would frustrate anyone to one level or another. But also, again, I am just gonna keep harping about it. Like, he chose to leave the Frothing Berserker up when he didn't have to, and he got punished very heavily because once it attacked for I think 14 it was, he was under so much pressure that suddenly instead of being able to take the game quite slowly and just carrying on and being very safe, he was making like suboptimal plays, and he's always on the back foot then, and having so much card draw, as you said at the start of the game, Battle Rage for the warrior being able to just draw so many cards and have so many answers kept the Paladin under a lot of pressure, and we are going into the last game, or potential last game, should I say, for bloodyface. Currently 2-0 up, and on his Shaman versus Hotform's Cthulhu Warrior.
And I think that Hotform picked this deck because he thinks that it's the best one against his opponent. It does have a lot of those strong armor up things and tools to deal with some of the early minions, like the Fire War Axes, are quite good against gods like the excuse me, the 1/3 that keeps growing.
The 1/3? Which one?
The Shaman one.
Oh, the truck.
Yeah, the tunnel truck.
You confuse it keeps growing. It's like, oh no, its attack just gets ridiculous when you when you overload. That's the one I'm just like, oh yeah, that overload one. I completely agree. Hotform though, when he's opening hands, probably a little bit annoyed. Cthulhu didn't show up for his last match with this deck, but he does have it in hand now, so that's definitely I'd say almost a dead card in this matchup unless Hotform can really stabilize and maybe finish the game with it. But as you pointed out, the Fire War Axe into Disciple of Cthulhu is actually going to be really useful to just slow this game right down. Yeah,
it was looking a little bit grim after the first 3 cards for Hotform, but there's the Fire War Axe, and some players even refer to the card as Fire Wind Axe, because the difference of having it on turn 2 can be such a huge difference that against aggressive decks, against decks that play minions early that you have to deal with, the difference can be so huge.
Yeah, it's the one card you always want versus any form of aggressive deck, and if you have it, you're like, right, okay, we can win this. Like, we're good. But Finley as well, also a really good opener for the more aggressive deck. He just snap picks Steady Shot. He's like, I know how this matchup is going. I don't need to do any fancy things with the Mage Hero power or anything. It's like, nope, I want that 2 damage to face for 2 mana potentially every turn.
It's very interesting because you don't always want to replace the hero power against the warrior that fast, because I think it's one of the better ones, because warrior does sometimes struggle a little bit with clearing the totems, and then you have the cards like Flame Tongue Totem that can help get some damage in. So
I think bloodyface is just because he actually doesn't run anything like Bloodlust. He's just like, this game needs to go as fast as possible, because if he just starts dropping the Ancient Shield Bearer or the Twin Emps, both of which we can see in Hotform's hand, if you get those down, suddenly the game becomes, almost unwinnable for the Shaman, unless they've got like the Spell Burst from hand.
Yeah, just looking at this, I'm trying to think if the matchup is like that bad that bloodyface feels like, okay, I need to make some risky, kind of a desperate looking plays. He's going so aggressive here.
Yeah, I guess he's looking now to abusive and then play the Feral Spirits, just make this 4-2 not as great, having to trade into the taunts and not quite clear the board up. All the while pushing forward to face, and we can see, although there's a Fire War Axe, so you can kill both Feral Spirits this turn. And you know what? Do you actually just slam one of the 2 ones? And just say, you need to just slow this game down. You need to stop doing this, knowing that your opponent has the Hunter Hero power as well. Oh, he chooses to armor up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been fine to just do it, but it might help a Hotform to deal with something that's a tiny bit bigger by being able to slam and then maybe use the weapon afterwards. Or now if he finds an execute, that slam is certainly going to help him to deal with that
Yep, so we do see a
Flame
shield
Breather
block
Faceless.
drawn, which is going to help with the cycle, but he's going to start off with a slam onto that 7/7, hoping to God he draws an execute, I imagine.
Yep.
He can clear it off with the Disciple, but
Ow.
7 to face. Does he have a choice, though? Let's be
No,
honest. Like,
I don't think so.
He can't even shield block. Oh, he could shield block, shield slam.
Yeah, he could find a shield slam or an execute, but it's a risky play.
But
and
the second you don't, you're taking like 14.
I don't think he needs to take the risk here. I think you just face tank it. Just take the 7, kill it off. For next turn he has cards like Ancient Shield Bearer or the Twin Emperor. He is at Cartoon 10 attack, so both of those battle cries are functional.
Yep, and Bloodyface draws into the
Whoa.
Doomhammer. Not the card he wants, having another one in hand for quite a while now. But he does have a Rockbiter as well, so that can actually really help push through this, the Ancient Shield Bearer armor that he's going to gain. Because I imagine you go for the Shield Bearer over the Taunt purely because you know your opponent's running cards like Lava Burst.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit safer. There could be a Doomhammer coming in, and we can kind of see that the Twin Emperor would work out better here. Yeah. There's no need for the armoring yet. But if you Hotform, you know that there's the Hunter Hero Power, which is 2 damage. If there's a Lava Burst, if there's a Lightning Bolt on top of it, that would end the game.
And also, you've seen a lot of minions, actually, from Bloodyface already. So he's actually played quite a lot of minions early game, so you just think, okay, well, naturally, he's going to start drawing into his spells. He's not cast any. And also, I have no doubt that Hotform is paying attention to the cards in hand and how long they've been there. And a card like Lava Burst is something you would hold on to, like just the same as Doomhammer, of course. And there's a Lightning Bolt, so he can clear that 10 damage if he really wants to this turn, and then follow it with Lightning Bolt. But much more mana efficient to Hero Power this turn. Squeeze that one in, and then follow with Potential Burst next turn. Maybe he draws the second Rockbiter.
Yep, there's the Smork shot. And excuse me, steady shot.
You petition for a name change of that Hero Power Speeds.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
So we see now that Bloodyface is, I don't know if I should use the word punished, but kind of punished for not getting the Rockbiter damage in while he could. Because now he's got 2 gigantic taunts to hit through, both of which, even with Rockbiter, he doesn't hit through, so he can only kill 1, and one of them effectively tanks 5 damage on 1 health, which is pretty nice.
Yep. I don't really see a way for Bloodyface to win from here on out.
Yeah, the only benefit is if he draws into Ancestral Knowledge, for example, to draw into more, like Lava Burst, stack damage up like that, he can actually clear off one of the taunts. But of course, the double Doomhammer and the Flame Tongue Totem isn't what you're after. You really just need the spells here just to power through.
Yeah.
Oh, another Shield Bearer. That might just
Jeez.
be game there and then, because I just don't know if Bloodyface has what he needs to hit through. Still got to get through that taunt. He does run 1 Earth Shot, which he probably would have really liked to have instead of that Doomhammer at one point. There's the Ancestral Knowledge. So he's still got a chance. He had Lava Burst and Trog. Okay, so he's still got a chance. He does have the Hunter Hero Power to keep just ticking away there and reduce the armor. Never mind, he's actually dead. I'm so focused on the Warrior's health and working out potential damage. I was like, let's just ignore the fact he's just face tanking 8 and he's going to kill himself.
Well, I mean, yeah.
It was all about the Warrior's health for that match for me. But maybe a little bit too much about his Bloodyface does lose the game. But as we said, that was probably against the hardest deck. He had to go against its Hotform's lineup. So I think his next 2 games are going to be, or his potential next game is going to be a little bit easier. And what do you actually go with Hotform? What do you think is the highest chance, the Renolock or the Paladin? Because both have access to very large heals. But if you don't draw them, both are very open to just getting burst down quick.
Well, I mean, Hotform will have to win with both of his decks, but if he was to pick the better one first, I think that I like the Paladin a tiny bit more. That's what I would go for. Just because the Forbidden Healings, they're very strong, and there's a lot of tools to deal with the early minions. The version of Shaman that Bloodyface is also running can be a little bit weak to something like an early Wild Pyro Equality. It can be tough to make a new board after that clear.
Yeah, I like it as well, and not the strongest opening hand from Hotform. He does keep hold of the True Silver Champion, and Doomsayer. That's actually pretty important, although maybe slightly less important in the face Shaman matchup because a lot of the minions actually have charge and you just get the use out of them instantly. But definitely against those like Trog, Totem Golem openings, even the Feral Spirit as well, it's going to be pretty strong. And he has the Equality and the Aldor Peacekeeper, so Hotform's definitely got the tools he needs at the start of the game to take this one.
Yeah, Doomsayer is the the best card that you can hope for in your starting hand against a deck like this. And because the minion that bloodyface played on turn 1, Hotform doesn't even need to coin out the Doomsayer just yet.
Yeah, it's the 1/1 you're not really afraid of, although yes, you could kill it and then stop your opponent playing a minion turn 2. It's definitely better later on, because Shaman just doesn't really have a great way of dealing with it outside maybe that one Earthshock in the deck.
Yeah, sometimes if you see like a tunnel shock coming from your opponent, then maybe it's something to consider that you wanna play the Doomsayer early, so there's no...
We stop them going Trog into Golem, right? Because that's when you start to run into some problems.
Exactly. Like you wanna stop that real bad, but the Argent Squire, that's a 1/1. It's not going to get any better, so not too worried about that. Interesting here, he's going to... Hotform is going to skip the Doomsayer once again, because he knows that there's an overload on bloodyface's side, so there's not that much that bloodyface would be able to play that turn.
Yeah, do you ever actually now just maybe kill the 2/1 and then Doomsayer? Yeah, I like this, because again, the Squire almost certainly isn't going to be able to clear the Doomsayer by itself unless there's a couple of Rock Biters, but
yeah,
I also just don't think bloodyface needs to clear this. I think you just take your 1 damage, but is it too much for, say, a waste to miss a potential turn's worth of damage? Because he could play, for example, the Horse Rider and just, I'll just play 3 mana, 2 damage. Okay, I'm happy with that.
I think that's a little bit too desperate on you. That doesn't really affect it that much, so it would be a tiny bit wasteful. Hotform here, he could play another Doomsayer if he wants to. Oh wow, he's going just to slow down his opponent. But here, bloodyface does have that Doomhammer, which is exactly what he wants to be doing when minions aren't that efficient.
He's probably really happy, actually, to see the Doomsayer that turn, because he knows there's 2. He knows one later on could cause him an issue, but this time he's like, yeah, Doomsayer, I'll play the Doomhammer. There's Doom everywhere. But, get that damage in. And again, he has Rockbiter, Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt, Abusive. So much damage straight from hand. Although he can't obviously cast it all in 1 turn.
Yeah, and Hotform doesn't have much healing right now. He does have the Ragnar's Light Lord. But the coin was just used, so he will have to wait for turn 8 to get it on the board.
Yeah, I'm actually just sat looking at the damage and trying to decide what the the most optimal sort of push out is. I kind of do like playing the Horse Rider this turn, just to get the damage from the minions straight to face. You don't have to worry about any awkward taunt minions or anything. You put the pressure on the board through minions and then burst later on with the spells to finish the game. Yeah, this is a lot of pressure.
Strong. And next turn he will be able to use the rest of his hand. No overload. That is just a ridiculous amount of damage. It's actually 21 damage.
Is there even anything Hotform can do here to reduce, to actually even survive? He can actually clear off some of the board. I think he can actually clear off all of it with the Kodo. But he doesn't heal, and that's actually just gonna tie it up. And this is how the matchup we imagine happened, and it could have been similar with the Reno as well. Sometimes this deck just goes way too fast when a lot of your heals are all late game cards. We saw Hotform play the Lay on Hands earlier in a previous game, so not going to be enough, and Hotform is going to fall 3-1 to bloodyface in a pretty cool set overall.
It sure was, and there in the end...
nice stretch, yeah, I'm done.
Once again, like going for a little bit of again, like BM there. He didn't need to cast that Lava Burst.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
He did?
Yeah.
Casting Lava Burst is always necessary. It is always the right play to cast the Lava Burst. It's a very satisfying card to be able to kill your opponent with. But anyway, I have returned. That looked like a fun series to be involved with. Face Shaman almost had that thing where it fell a little bit flat like it did in a lot of the European games, but it managed to get over the edge there. Incredibly oppressive draw there, just exactly what you wanted. Few minions, into a Doomhammer, into Burst. Got the job done really nicely.
Yeah, really strong performance. I think bloodyface actually just played well throughout all of it. I especially liked the accidental, BM of the miss lethal and then into the execute onto the Tyrion was kind of a good play, I think. Top level stuff.
How did you guys feel about Hotform's lineup in general? Because we were talking about it, and it looked like he perhaps over-synergized some of his decks. He had a lot of Cthulhu minions in his Cthulhu Warrior. He had a lot of Death Rattles in his N'Zoth Paladin. What do you guys think the right number of cultists or Death Rattle minions in that kind of
it's
build
something
is?
we actually mentioned before it began in terms of N'Zoth Paladin specifically, is that, when the deck was first started being built, everyone was like, throw loads of Death Rattles in. But I think pretty quickly everyone decided that you can actually just run the legendary minions and be pretty happy with it. And it just seems like Hotform them really prefer just having a more, a deeper death rattle pool, and the same exactly with the cultists as well.
There was a trend there. Like in the warrior, he had a lot of Katuna buffing minions, and in the paladin with the death rattle theme, he was also running all those small minions that a lot of other players choose not to play anymore.
Yeah, I think with the warrior, you don't really need Cthulhu to particularly win you the game, so it doesn't really need to be that big. I think you just want to hit 10 and be happy with it in terms of both the shield bearer and the emperors as well, and getting those double taunts off. You just want to outlast your opponent, and the Cthulhu's actually just a bonus in the end.
Regardless, we will see if Hotform lives to regret some of his deck building decisions or whether he's able to fight back. Congratulations to bloodyface. Very well played, but standing by are Frodan and TJ, who are going to give you some more updates on the state of the bracket overall.
That's right, Sottle. I'm joined by TJ, good old buddy of mine, and we're just going to update you on how the bracket is shaping up. Specifically, our predictions, they're intact for now. I mean, there's no more people to be stricken at the moment, although a lot of players are still in the middle. Actually, most of these players are in the lower bracket. The only remaining player in the upper bracket is Amnesiac, the winter champion. So not looking the most safe for our predictions, but in the end, I think it's still viable for some of these guys to go through.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a much different landscape than the year preliminary, where most of our predictions were intact, even going into day number 2. So it's kind of nice, though, to see some of these unknown players, up-and-coming unknown players, make it through. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of our schedule, we have 2 more matches that we want to show you. The first coming up on stream is Dear Jason versus Freywind. Now, Dear Jason is a player that harks back to 2014. He got to the America's Championship when he was also a 15-year-old boy, and we were talking about how this guy's like an upcoming player, and maybe he's going to be the one breaking on the scene. He ended up falling in the round of 16, ultimately losing on the second stream, so people didn't even get to see much of him at the time. And now Dear Jason is back here making quite an exceptional run. He'd be 1 round away from going into the winner's bracket of day number 2. You got a chance to look at his lineup. He's known for being a really greedy control player. Did you notice anything specific about his decks coming up here?
Not really anything specific, but he has a really interesting aggro shaman list. Okay. I'll sort of leave it up to sort of the casters to paint the picture of that one, because there's some interesting cards in there, and I know they were looking at it, but definitely look forward to seeing him play. Players like him and bloodyface, who have been around the competitive scene for a long time, but haven't had that breakout performance, are the players that I've been keeping my eye on, even in winter, as far back as the winter preliminary, in this spring preliminary as well, to sort of make a big splash. So look for him and look for players like bloodyface to make it through.
Match number 8 will be VCT versus Napoleon. Now, these names might not strike any kind of memory chords for you guys, but if you've been around the forums, at least, some of these guys have been very involved in the community side of things. Napoleon very much posting on the forums all the time, giving out his guides, showing people how to play, from a player who was an established streamer. I think it's a really cool opportunity for him to make a name too. We'll have the casters talk about more about it. We just want to set the schedule. In the meantime, we want to update you guys on what's happening in the lower bracket. We have some pretty good matchups. We have Impact versus Celestial's Peyton, a player that made a mark in DreamHack Austin, and a lot of people know him from Ladder as well. Admirable and Neo Ability still fighting strong. And of course, we have another big match too, is Nostum versus the Lucky One. These are 2 guys who I think you could also peg them to be top 8 material, but unfortunately one of their runs are going to stop here.
Yeah, the Lucky One, most known for his top finish in Legend, I believe, just last season on the North American server. So looking at it, I always will root for casters when they're playing at tournaments. I remember back,
Admirable.
Not many people for Admirable. Not many people know this, but Frodan was actually the first person to play Patron Warrior in a competitive tournament. I think it was back in, was it Seat Story Cup?
Yeah, the Blackrock Mountain released their first wing the day of the tournament, and I submitted a Patron Warrior list. I think it was pretty bad. It didn't have Battle Rage in it. It had like Axe Flinger.
Yeah.
Or I think it was something variant of it. It was just like, but it definitely had the Patrons, the Whirlwinds, the Inner Rage stuff. It had a lot of the elements of it.
You were the innovator of the time.
Actually, all 3 of those decks, TJ, it was Malygos Freeze Mage. At the time, no one was really doing that. And then it was 1-turn kill Warlock that Savitz suggested me to play. Combined, me and Savitz went 1-8 that tournament with the deck. But then the 1-turn kill, the Arcane Golem, Power of Overwhelming Faces, ended up becoming a staple later. So I like to think together, me and Savitz were way ahead of the meta.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how'd you guys end up doing in that tournament? But yeah, not having a broadcasted match, it was a little rough.
It's okay.
But I was still rooting for you during that tournament, and I'll always root for
the
casters.
pioneers are never remembered or revered. It's always the people who make him popular. The Kalentos, the Strife Crows, etc. They're the ones who get all the credit, but it's okay. But in the meantime, I want to ask TJ a couple more questions just to get ready for the next series in just a moment here. We've been seeing some really interesting and unique lineups. I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what's the most unique lineup that you've been able to spot today?
One of the most unique lineups is probably some guy on the board here. This guy who's actually got an X to his name, which means he's been eliminated. Dog, who was the only player, at least that I noticed, that brought every single old god in his deck lineups. Even his druid had Yogg-Saron and Yasharaj. He had the Reno Warlock and then the Cthulhu Warrior, I think. I don't remember how exactly they were distributed across the 4 decks, but
it's very fascinating.
Yeah, it was a really bold call to make because that's not a normal thing.
Even the fans of Dog, and they're plentiful, both in watching the stream as well as the people kind of playing in the tournament too. A lot of them are fans of Dog. They were saying, I love Dog, but I'm not sure if his decks will carry him through the tournament. And Dog was really being the brave one here. And, a few other players are actually in the tournament carrying the same exact thing. Neobility, for example, we give a shout out to him. He's also doing the same exact thing, too. Yasharaj with the Yogg-Sarons in the Druid deck. So very much so that maybe he was on the right idea, but perhaps it just didn't work out for him this tournament. It could be the same exact thing with It's Flo, who got eliminated, and Chalky, who did in DreamHack. They brought the same lineup. However, one person won the tournament and one person was eliminated. Yeah. And that very much could also be the same exact thing.
It's a bold call, and in a situation where we're in right now, where the meta is not figured out. Players saw that there was room to capitalize on greedy deck choices if players brought the same decks that the EU preliminary players brought. And, players like It's Flo, Chalky, and even Nostum, who's still left with the same lineup, but, he's in the lower bracket at the moment, so he's fighting for his life. They saw an opening, and they tried to capitalize on it, and maybe it didn't work out this tournament, but it's a bold choice. And tied to time as well. You have to give sort of a nod to the Shaman list. Unfortunately, he fell quite early on in the tournament.
It's all good. It's all good.
It was either he 0-2'd or he 7-0'd. Like, there was only 2 options for him.
Very true indeed. All right, well, that's all the time we have for now. We are going to get ready for our 7th match of the day. Make sure to hashtag HCT and let us know how you guys are watching along, whether you're playing Hearthstone or just enjoying the nice Saturday evening with all of your friends and family. I'm Frody, and from TJ, we're going over to the desk to get ready for Dear Jason versus Freywind.